They told you to repeat it. That if you just said the words enough times, abundance would come, wealth, freedom, overflow, all yours if you just aligned your vibration, wrote it on your mirror, spoke it into the universe. But here's the truth no one told you. You can speak to the universe all you want, but if the subconscious contract inside of you still sees scarcity as safer, the door will never open. Abundance doesn't respond to noise. It responds to identity. Napoleon Hill never told you to chant your way into riches. He told you to become definite in thought, in purpose, in desire. Because abundance is not a force you summon. It is a reflection of what you are willing to become. And if you haven't changed who you're becoming, all the affirmations in the world will only echo back emptiness. Look closely. Most people using affirmations are not manifesting wealth. They are fighting inner doubt. Their words are not declarations. They are disguises, veils over unresolved identity. You see, the real block is not what you say. It's what you still believe about yourself beneath the words. And this is the prison most never escape. A life spent trying to reprogram the conscious mind, while the subconscious holds the original blueprint of unworthiness. But what if I told you there's one shift, just one that doesn't require repetition, rituals, or rewiring? A shift that unlocks abundance by ending the conflict within yourself. This isn't about chasing more. It's about becoming whole. Because when you stop trying to attract abundance and start becoming a person of real internal value, the world can't help but respond. Not because you tricked it, but because you finally aligned with truth. This is not motivation. It's a mirror. You are not here to repeat mantras. You are here to remember who you are beneath them. There is a mirror that most never question. A mirror not made of glass, but of identity fragments. And every morning they stand before it whispering declarations not to their soul, but to their doubt. I am wealthy. I am successful. I am powerful. But deep beneath those words, something silent replies, no, you're not. And that right there is the fracture. You were told that if you repeated something long enough, the mind would believe it. That the subconscious would absorb these phrases like soil absorbs water. But that is not how the subconscious works. The subconscious is not a sponge. It is a judge, a gatekeeper, a scribe that only records truth or what you believe to be true. So when your spoken affirmations contradict your lived identity, the subconscious doesn't update, it rejects. This is why affirmations often feel like lies shouted into a void. Because until the inner identity shifts, words alone are decoration. Imagine this. You are standing in front of a cracked mirror. Every affirmation you speak is like placing a gold sticker over the crack. It looks better for a moment. But behind the shimmer, the fracture remains. And over time, the weight of that illusion becomes unbearable. Because deep down, the psyche knows you are not what you say. You are what you prove to yourself every day in silence. Most affirmations fail because they come from scarcity trying to sound abundant. They are not rooted in certainty. They are born in fear. The truth is, the subconscious only listens to what is congruent. It listens when thought, feeling, and identity are aligned. So what happens when you declare, I am wealthy, but you feel guilt about money, or shame from the past, or a fear of surpassing your family? The subconscious says, that's not you. And it closes the gate. You can't bypass the identity that was forged in lack. You must dissolve it. And that doesn't happen through repetition. It happens through revelation. Because the real you, the wealthy one, the worthy one was never lost. It was simply buried beneath a story someone else handed you. And stories cannot be rewritten by words. They must be lived differently. Think back to the first time you were told money was bad, or that people like you don't make it far, or that wanting more was selfish, dangerous, or disloyal. Those moments wrote identity contracts. Agreements your younger self made to stay safe, stay small, or stay accepted. No affirmation can override those contracts because those contracts live deeper than words. They live in your decisions, in your posture, in what you tolerate. This is why so many highly intelligent, driven individuals can't seem to break past a certain financial level. They're not lazy. They're not unfocused. They're loyal to an outdated version of themselves, a version that learned survival through shrinking. And so, every time they try to affirm abundance, there's a part of them still pledging allegiance to lack. A silent voice saying, if you grow too much, you'll be alone. If you succeed, you'll lose your place in the tribe. If you change, you'll no longer be lovable. Until that voice is addressed, until the identity it speaks for is seen, no mantra will hold. Let me say this clearly. Words spoken from misalignment do not create change. They create tension. And the more you repeat what you don't believe, the more you split yourself in two. The self that performs and the self that remembers. But there's another way. Not through louder affirmations, but through silent alignment. Through becoming someone who no longer needs to affirm worth because their life is the affirmation, because their decisions echo it, their boundaries prove it, their posture embodies it. There is a shift, an irreversible one, that begins the moment you stop chasing better words and start sculpting a better identity, one rooted not in fantasy, but in responsibility, not in hype, but in truth, not in performance, but in presence. The cracked mirror must be replaced, not covered. And that begins with understanding the original reflection was never yours. It was given, projected, distorted. But now, you are the sculptor. You choose what gets carved, what stays, what goes. Read that again. You've been trying to speak abundance into a mirror that no longer fits your becoming. And no matter how beautiful the words, if the reflection is still broken, they echo back nothing but noise. Affirmations fail not because you are weak. They fail because the truth inside of you is stronger than the lie you're trying to believe. And that truth will not let you fake it. Not for long. So stop affirming. Start aligning. The shift doesn't begin in language. It begins in identity. And that's what we uncover next. The subconscious doesn't care what you want. It only honors what you are. Or more precisely, what you've agreed to be, not in speech, in survival. This is the forgotten language of the mind beneath the mind, the place where all abundance begins or ends. Not with intention, not with affirmation, but with identity contracts. What is an identity contract? It's the invisible agreement you made with yourself, or with life, at a moment when staying safe mattered more than being free. You didn't sign it with a pen. You signed it with fear, with shame, with silence, with compromise, and the ink was emotion. Let me explain. Every one of us at some point made a vow to never outshine, never stand out, never surpass the limitations of those we love or the conditions we came from. Because when you're young and powerless, belonging is currency, and success feels dangerous. So we say things like, if success makes me different, I'd rather blend in. If money causes conflict, I'll just live with less. If being powerful threatens connection, I'll stay small. These are not just thoughts. They become subconscious contracts, silent laws that rule your behavior even decades later. This is why so many driven people hit invisible ceilings. They're not stuck because they lack knowledge. They're stuck because they haven't renegotiated the vows they made in survival. These contracts are ancient, but they're still active. They live in your hesitation to charge more, in your guilt when things finally go well, in the self-sabotage right before the breakthrough. Each of these actions is a signature, proof of the contract still in force. And here's what most never realize. The subconscious doesn't resist abundance because it hates wealth. It resists because it believes wealth violates your original agreement. Read that again. If the child within you believes that abundance will cause love, peace, or acceptance, then it will destroy every opportunity before it lets you betray that vow. This is why logic fails. This is why affirmations bounce off. This is why goals get set and broken. Because the real contract was never with the goal. It was with the fear underneath it. So how do you change this? You don't force the subconscious to accept new ideas. You meet it with new agreements. You must sit down at the table of your own history and rewrite the contract. And not with false confidence, but with real compassion. Because the part of you that made those vows, it was protecting you. It did its job. It kept you alive. But survival is not the ceiling. It was the starting point. You are no longer that child, no longer dependent on fitting in to be safe. And now, you have the power to say, I release the vow of lack. I release the contract that says I must stay small to be loved. I choose a new agreement that wealth is safe, that expansion is service, that abundance is alignment. This isn't a ritual. It's a reclamation. And it must be felt, not just said. Because the subconscious only responds to congruence. It watches you. It listens, not to your voice, but to your actions. So if you want to break an old contract, don't just burn a journal page. Burn the pattern. Stop betraying your future to protect the past that no longer holds your truth. Do not confuse loyalty to origin with loyalty to destiny. You are not here to preserve your limitation. You are here to evolve through it. And that begins when you stop fighting for your old story and start honoring the new one. There's a moment in every transformation when the old contract is brought into the light. It may come as resistance, fatigue, or bad luck. It may show up as people pulling away. It may surface as fear that expansion means abandonment. Good. That means you're close. The contract is showing itself because it knows. You are remembering your power. And the moment you stop negotiating with fear and instead speak to it as a sovereign being, everything changes. Not because you shout it louder, but because you stopped whispering. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be whole. And if becoming whole means breaking every agreement that was written in your pain, so be it. The subconscious is not your enemy. It is your record keeper. Change the record. The new wealth does not begin with income. It begins with identity and alignment. Your next level doesn't require more information. It requires an identity that no longer leaks power trying to keep old promises alive. End the contract. Not with rage, with reverence. Because once the vow dissolves, the gate opens. And what you've been trying to attract now flows toward you, not as a reward, but as a reflection. There's a moment quiet but irreversible when a person stops chasing abundance and starts becoming a source of it. This is the shift, not a tactic, not a mindset hack, but a rewiring of identity from scarcity-driven desire to self-generated value. You see, most people want abundance like a starving man wants food. They reach, they crave, they declare. But in their eyes, the truth remains. I do not yet have enough. I am not yet enough. And in that energy, the wealth never truly arrives. Because the world mirrors not what you want, but who you are being. Read that again. You don't attract abundance by speaking louder. You attract it by becoming someone who no longer needs to chase it. This is the paradox that shatters ego and awakens the soul. Abundance comes not to those who want more, but to those who give more value than they take. This is the universal law of compensation. Napoleon Hill said it clearly. You will be paid in direct proportion to the quantity and quality of service you render. Not the quantity of your affirmations. Not the quality of your vision board, but the depth of value you embody and deliver. Because wealth is not a lottery. It is a ledger. A measurement of how well you've aligned your unique abilities with the needs of the world. So the real shift is internal, from how can I get to how can I become? From I want to be rich to I am the kind of person who creates value in every room I enter. Not performatively, not manipulatively, but naturally because that is who you become. There's a wellspring inside of you. not metaphorically, literally. A reservoir of untapped insight, experience, strength, and silent knowing that the world needs. But that well has been hidden behind the locked gate, not locked by others, locked by identity. And the key is value. Not inherited value, not ego value. Real value, what you build, what you give, what you see that others miss, and most importantly, how willing you are to become the person who can steward it. Because abundance doesn't fear you. It tests you. It wants to know, can you hold power without corruption? Can you build wealth without superiority? Can you create impact without losing yourself in the applause? These are not spiritual riddles. They are the gates. Until you embody value, money will evade you, not as punishment, but as protection. Because wealth without identity will always collapse. And the world doesn't need more collapsed men pretending to be kings. It needs men and women who know themselves so deeply that abundance is not something they need. It's something they naturally generate, like breath, like warmth, like presence. This is the embodiment shift. You stop chasing the outcome and start becoming the source. This is when the world begins to open, not out of pity, but out of resonance. Because you're no longer broadcasting lack. You become the signal of enough. That's when clients find you. Opportunities rise. Doors unlock that you didn't even knock on. Not because of magic, because of math. You became more valuable. And the world compensated you for it. It's not emotional. It's structural. And the beauty is this. When you become a person of value, you don't need to beg life for abundance. You become the place where abundance lives. People feel it in your presence. They trust it in your voice. They seek it in your decisions. Because you become someone who creates overflow wherever you go. No scarcity, no hunger, no pretending, just alignment, just stewardship, just quiet certainty. So here's the real question you must ask. Not what do I want to attract, but what kind of person must I become so that abundance is the natural byproduct of my existence? That question changes everything because it puts the power where it belongs, within. This shift is not a moment. It is a rebirth. It is the end of need and the beginning of embodiment. And once you make it, once you stop defining yourself by what you lack and start walking as the source of what others seek, you don't chase abundance anymore. You anchor it because you become someone who cannot be separated from value. And that is the moment the wellspring unlocks. Not by force, but by frequency. What happens next? You rebuild. Not your bank account. Not your reputation, but your identity from the inside out. Imagine a block of marble. To the untrained eye, it is heavy, dull, and shapeless. But to the sculptor, it is a prison that holds a figure waiting to be revealed. And so, the sculptor does not add. He subtracts. He does not decorate. He removes, chip by chip, blow by blow. He eliminates what does not belong, until what does stands free. This is the code of real transformation. And it is the same for you. You do not create a new identity by stacking affirmations, rituals, or goals on top of old fear. You reveal your true identity by removing the illusions that buried it. This is the sculptor's code. Not to become more, but to become true. You see, we live in a world obsessed with addition. More strategies, more information, more techniques. But identity is not built by adding. It is forged by clarifying. The question is no longer, what do I need to do to become wealthy? The question is, what must I remove from my character that is no longer compatible with the wealth I seek? This is the part that breaks most people, because it requires silence. It requires stillness. It requires brutal, tender honesty. Because you don't change your life by decorating your wounds. You change it by acknowledging them, by seeing where the mask began, and laying it down. The sculptor does not fear the stone. He respects it. He studies its density, its flaws, its strength, because to shape it well, he must know its nature. And to reshape your identity, you must do the same. You must look inward with no agenda, only awareness. Ask, where did I begin to shrink myself? What pain am I still loyal to? What do I fear I'll lose if I grow? These are not self-help questions. They are architectural blueprints. Because every answer reveals a corner of the stone that must be struck. And each strike reveals you. This work is not glamorous. There are no crowds, no applause. Just you, the chisel, and the silence between who you were and who you must become. And that silence is sacred. Because in that stillness, you'll realize you are not broken. You are buried. And your real wealth, your true inherent power is not something you invent. It's something you remember. Sculptors don't create beauty. They free it. Likewise, you do not need to create a new self. You need to release the original you from the armor of doubt, shame, and inherited fear. This is why transformation feels violent at times. Because the identity that's dying is not you. It's the false protector that once kept you safe. Let it go. You don't need the armor anymore. You need precision. You need truth. And above all, you need courage. Because to chisel away what no longer belongs means risking the exposure of your real self. But here's the secret. The real you, the one aligned with wealth, wisdom, and purpose, has never been afraid. Only the mask trembles. Only the illusion resists. The true self knows who it is. It doesn't chase. It chooses. And choice is the sculptor's first tool. So choose now. Not just what you want, but who you must become to deserve it. Not in the eyes of others. In the mirror of your own silence. Because when you stand before the mirror, not cracked, not painted, but clear, your reflection becomes a compass. And your identity, it becomes irreversible. Because a sculpted truth cannot be undone, only ignored, and you're done ignoring it. You've struck the stone. You've heard the echo. Now keep going. The figure inside you is close. There is a kind of wealth that never shows up on spreadsheets. It can't be taxed. It can't be stolen. It can't be measured by bank statements or branded by status. And yet it outlasts every dollar ever printed. This is legacy wealth, the economy of identity, impact, and intention. The wealth that reshapes generations, not just incomes. Most chase financial freedom, but few pursue legacy freedom. And the difference is everything. Because when you build for money alone, your motivation dies with the market. But when you build for legacy, your name becomes a lighthouse, even long after you're gone. Let that sink in. You see, the modern conversation about abundance is shallow. It's obsessed with how much, but never asks who it's making you become. The deeper truth? The wealth that matters isn't just what you accumulate. It's what you activate in others. It's what you leave behind in the character of your children, in the ideas you birth that outlive you, in the freedom you create so others don't have to suffer the way you did. This is the legacy economy, and it runs on different laws in the system you were raised in. The old system said, trade time for money, accumulate for self, win by extraction. But legacy operates in another dimension. Trade wisdom for elevation, accumulate to redistribute, win by becoming the foundation others can rise from. You're not here to just get rich. You are here to become a source of richness in presence, in power, in peace. And that begins by asking one brutal, beautiful question. Who will I be when the numbers fade? Because they will fade. The market crashes, currencies collapse, titles disappear, and the world forgets even the loudest names. But what it never forgets is presence, integrity, example, truth. This is the wealth no recession can touch. And this is what abundance truly is. Not the excess of things, but the presence of meaning. Legacy wealth is built not when you make it, but but when you begin living in alignment with a cause greater than your ego. When your days are no longer about proving your worth, but multiplying your wisdom. And here's the secret. When you start living for legacy, the material abundance takes care of itself, because value compounds fastest when it flows outward. Abundance becomes effortless, not because you stopped working, but because you stopped withholding. You stopped hoarding your gifts, stopped censoring your voice, stopped waiting for permission. And in doing so, you became wealth itself, not a seeker of value, but a source of it. This is the shift that echoes. Because a man who lives by legacy no longer fears lack. He knows the source is within him, and it cannot be taken, only activated. So now I ask you, what are you building that time cannot erase? A brand? Or bloodline of wisdom? A product? Or a philosophy? A name? Or a narrative that liberates those after you? The real game is not in scaling income, it's in scaling impact. Not through noise, but through structure. Through the quiet, steady embodiment of truth. Because the people who changed the world didn't yell the loudest. They simply lived the clearest. They walked with a fire so consistent, others could see by it. That is your inheritance, not struggle, not survival, not scarcity disguised as hustle, but the unshakable sovereign, knowing that your life is not just for you. It is a bridge. And wealth is only sacred when it helps others cross. So ask yourself, am I building something that outlives me? Am I planting seeds I'll never see grow? Am I shaping a world my grandchildren will thank me for? This is not poetic. It is structural. Because identity is the only currency that appreciates over time. Your thoughts become habits. Your habits become patterns. Your patterns become culture. And culture is the container of legacy. So become a culture, a frequency, a standard. And watch as the world reorganizes itself around you. Not because you chase money, but because you stood so deeply in value. That money had no choice but to find you. This is what cannot be erased. When the algorithms shift, when the markets collapse, when the buildings fall, you remain, not as memory, as blueprint, as the signal that reminded others what was possible. That's the real wealth. And it's already within you. Beautiful. Let us now enter the silence, where no mantra lives and only truth remains. Beneath the noise, beneath the ambition, beneath the rituals and repetition, there's something older, something deeper, something unspoken. It has no title. It doesn't need one, because it has always been there. This is the real you, not the version striving for success, not the one trying to heal or perform or manifest, but the original one, the one that remembers. And from that place, let me ask you this. Who would you be if you didn't need to say it? If there were no affirmations to hide behind, no audience to impress, no past to overcome, what would remain? Because that silent, steady presence is the source of all wealth. The identity beneath identity, the value beyond value. And the truth is, you were never blocked. You were only bound by false agreements, by outdated mirrors, by words that never matched your knowing. But now the words have fallen. Now the mirror is gone, and all that's left is choice. Not a loud choice, not a dramatic one, but the kind that reshapes everything quietly, like breath, like still water, like a hand reaching into the dark and finding the switch. You see, abundance was never locked behind affirmations. It was locked behind alignment. And the key was never a word. It was a decision to stop seeking worth and start walking as someone who remembers it. So if you've heard anything today, hear this. You do not need to chant value. You need to live it. You do not need to attract wealth. You need to become someone wealth trusts. You do not need to impress the world. You need to impress yourself in silence, in decisions, in the places no one sees, because legacy is not built on words. It's built on who you are when there is no performance. And if you've made it this far, it means the old identity is crumbling. Good. Let it. Because what comes next is not an upgrade. It is a return. A return to the version of you that never needed to prove, only to embody. So here's how you lead this ritual. Not with hype, not with noise, but with one quiet truth in your chest. I am the source now. Say nothing. Just carry that. Let it move through your spine. Let it change how you walk into rooms. Let it adjust the rhythm of your breath. And then let your life speak. You don't need to post it. You don't need to preach it. Just become the key. Because when you do, the world no longer resists you. It recognizes you. Not for what you said, but for what you are. And that can never be undone.